Welcome into this Wednesday edition of Pushing the Pile. Mike Renner, Kyle Long, very special guest today, JP Acosta back on the program, and we will be going through win totals for the AFC. We're doing AFC today, NFC tomorrow. This show obviously brought to you by FanDuel Sportsbook. Make every moment more. JP, before we get to these win totals, before we get to some of the first off the ball here, I saw you were diving deep into week one of preseason. Any big takeaways? Because we debated it. We talked about it on Monday. Anything from your perspective that you want to call out that you saw?
Willie Lampkin might be my favorite player in the NFL.
Yes.
I love how he plays. I understand he's 5'11". I understand he's maybe 280 pounds. That guy can play some football. I love watching him play, the way he's able to get under defenders, and he's a former high school wrestler, high school wrestling champion, and you can tell when he plays, he was dirting people all game against the Cowboys, and I'm just like, you know what? I just want to see it in a game, in a real regular season game. I don't care if you put him at guard, center, line him up at fullback. I just think wherever you put him, he's going to be able to play really well. So my takeaway is I need some more Willie Lampkin in my life.
Oh.
Yeah, we love Willie Lampkin here, dude. That's like the best thing you could have said to start the podcast was to give a little bit of glaze, as the kids would say, to old Willie Lampkin. You know what? Willie Lampkin and I have something in common, not only the wrestling background, but his trainer and his agency is LaCharles Bentley. And if you know who LaCharles Bentley is in the football community now and the role he serves to young offensive linemen, it's impressive. But if you remember LaCharles Bentley as a football player, he was a face eater, a destroyer of worlds on the line of scrimmage. And any young center who has the opportunity to work with him is learning from the best. So tip of the cap to LB and tip of the cap to Willie Lampkin again.
Yeah, LaCharles, he kind of pioneered the what do we call it? This like space that's grown huge now, which is like,
well, people know O-line masterminds now.
Yes.
They see guys like Lane Johnson, Creed Humphrey, Trey Smith. They go down to these seminars at the O-line masterminds. And, you know, another shout out to Duke Manyweather. But the guy who founded this whole thing was LaCharles Bentley, and to really specialize offensive line training. And I would go out to Arizona and it would be nothing but the best offensive linemen and only offensive linemen in the gym. No reporters in the gym, no other positions, just O-line getting after it from sun up to sundown. Eat together, train together. That's the life Willie Lampkin lives. I respect that.
And now every position seemingly has their guy that's like the one you got to go to if you're training at a high level for said position. But last thing on Lampkin before we get to some news here, I just go back to his college tape, and we debated this spring, and I watched probably more of him than any other offensive lineman in the draft, just because he was so intriguing. Because you've never seen a guy like him, right? 5'11", 275 pounds. And I just was looking because the tape was so good. I'm like looking for a reason why not to buy in. You know, everything says you shouldn't, right? 5'11", 275. It is truly an outlier. But I just go back to like the Florida State game where he faced Darrell Jackson, who's like 345 pounds, where he faced, I'm blanking on the name of the other guy. Josh Farmer, who's like a fourth rounder, who's like 320. And I was just like, he kicked those guys' ass in that game. And if you could do it to those guys, I think you could do it to NFL players. So I ended up having him 63rd in my board. So if he turns out, I'm going to be insufferable about Willie Lampkin. So let's get to the first off the ball segment here. Big news. James Cook, the holdout/hold in, it's over. 4 years, $48 million. He didn't get to his coveted $15 million a year number that he publicly said he wanted to, but makes him the sixth highest paid running back in the NFL. This had to be a no-brainer for the Bills at this point. I'm surprised it was only this much, to be honest.
Yeah, I think with what the Bills want to do, especially with their explosiveness, running the ball, getting under center, I think James Cook's ability to turn those 4 to 5 yard gains into 7 or 8. The thing that I always love about James Cook is he's always moving forward. He's always falling forward. Those extra yards, those are the difference between being like the sixth best rushing team in the NFL and being a top 3. And I think Cook's ability to win there, his ability to win in the receiving game really helps that offense out a lot. The contract, like, again, it's $12 million a year, which I think a lot of people are going to like look at and go, oh my God, but compared to other positions, it's fine. Like he's making Darius Slayton money as one of the better running backs in the NFL. it seems like a really good deal. And I think that's a good deal for the Bills, especially with where they're at as a team.
Yeah, from a fiscal standpoint, it makes sense, Mike and JP, and that's a really good point, JP. But we also talk about you're not going to be able to pay this running back position if you don't have the pieces in place to have a successful running game. And what does that look like? It's an offensive line that's talented and has the ability to run the football on short yardage situations. When everybody in the stadium knows they're going to run the ball, the Bills have the ability to do that. I played for Aaron Cromer, their offensive line coach, for a long time, and he prides himself on saying, look, we're not here to do a mystery package. People know what we're doing. We're either going to get it done or not. And with a guy like James Cook, to your point, you can take that 4-yard gain and tip of the cap to the offensive line for getting us there, and you can hit a home run. It's guys like Saquon Barkley in Philadelphia have that same kind of combination. It's the recipe that makes the dish.
Yeah, I think the pendulum on running back contracts swung too far, and you will now see smart teams paying running backs. We literally just we saw the Eagles do it and win a Super Bowl, right? One of the smartest teams in the NFL, because two big things. The market is so crazy. You said Darius Slayton money. $12 million a year is like a wide receiver 3 now in the NFL. Would you rather have James Cook? Would you rather have Josh Jacobs, who's making $12 million a year? Or would you rather have a quality wide receiver 3? You'd rather have that running back every day of the week. And also the other thing is, I think running backs today are actually more valuable than they were a decade ago when they were getting paid a ton, because everyone was running cover 3 back then. Everyone was putting 8 guys in the box. Everyone was matching heavy personnel with heavy personnel defensively. And so run game success was heavily predicated on how much your offensive line was. Now with light boxes, it actually can be predicated on how good your running back is, because there's always space with light boxes. A guy who's
one-on-ones,
really talented,
one-on-ones,
will get those routinely. So if he is a difference maker, he will elevate a bad offensive line more nowadays than you could a decade ago. And so for all those reasons, yeah, very much a no-brainer for this Buffalo Bills team. All right, next bit of news here. Jordan Love, hand ligament repair surgery. I don't think this is as impactful as obviously, what was it, a knee injury he had last year during the season, because it's his non-throwing hand. But is this going to be just another excuse in the Jordan Love, why can't he take the next step sort of category here, JP?
At first, when I saw the hand ligament surgery, I was like, oh gosh, here we go again. Like, this is another year where they're going to get off to a slow start because Jordan Love is hurt. But then it's the left hand, and I'm just like, okay, like, this should be fine. I think it's one of those where it's like, oh, it's just football, like you're gonna get your hand hit sometime. It's left hand. I'm not super worried about it because it's not the throwing hand, but it will be something to monitor as we continue to go on throughout the season, especially if some of the handoffs look kind of wonky. Some of the under center stuff looks a little weird. Maybe they start off a little more shotgun based, and I wonder how that takes an effect on Josh Jacobs, who is sort of their version of a check down in that offense. So it'll be curious to see where they go with trying to mitigate the hand ligament injury with Jordan Love, but I think they should be fine.
We're trying to get continuity, right, in the National Football League. And even though it's a non-throwing hand thing, Jordan Love is going to miss reps. He's going to miss the under center, the center quarterback exchange. And for those of you who don't know what that is, it's how they open every practice. The offensive line goes out there and they start stretching. And the coach says, bring us the center. The center goes over to the other field and they work on cadences. They work on snapping the football under center and in shotgun. They work on any specialty type of snaps. Jordan Love's going to miss that, as well as the center missing his quarterback's cadence. So there is the lacking in continuity there. That's the only cause for concern. But as for physically, Jordan Love will be fine. They'll do a great job. They've got their own, doctors in Green Bay, some of the best in the world. They've imported them to Green Bay, Wisconsin. Mike Renner can vouch to that.
What's the name of the facility? There's literally a surgery center in Titletown. So Titletown's like what the Packers built up for like the fans, that's directly next to the stadium. And there's I think it's called Bell and Health. Bell and Health Surgical Center is directly next to that stadium. So they know what they're doing.
When I was on the Bears, I would drive to Green Bay and get my ankle fixed.
Jordan Love, though, to echo what you guys said, 10.5-inch hands, 95th percentile. I don't think it's going to hurt him from a ball handling perspective. Now, he might have to do that, outside zone right with the right hand reach across that we've seen in years past. Who's done stuff like Kurt Warner, I feel like doing stuff like that. It might have to do that early on in the season, but I'm with you guys. I don't see this as being too big of a deal. All right, there's first off the ball segment. We're going to get to the win totals for every single team in the AFC coming up right after this.
When you need your sports news all the time,
we've got breaking news to bring to you.
CBS Sports HQ gives you a snapshot of all the sports that matter to you. When you need your sports in a snap, find it on CBS Sports HQ, streaming free anywhere you are.
Let's start with the AFC North, where your Baltimore Ravens were the AFC North champs a season ago. They had 12 wins. They're over-under this year, 11.5 wins. That one's juiced a little to the over, minus 118 if you want to bet that over. And well, if you see there on the screen there, we are all loving the over for this Ravens team.
Yeah, I mean, the only reason I didn't go 14 like you guys is because the Ravens always have a weird game. Last year, it was losing to the Raiders. I think the year before,
they had 2 ones. They had the Browns, too. They had the Browns loss.
Yeah, they had the Browns game, the Jameis loss, and then the year before, they had the Colts loss where Gardner Minshew carved them up. And they always have those weird games. So I'm kind of just hedging for whichever game that's going to be. But I mean, if you want to talk about one of the most talented teams in football, the Ravens are right up there with Philadelphia. They are incredibly well coached. I think another year of Zach Orr as defensive coordinator is going to really do that defense wonders. They don't really have a lot of holes. It is just like they could be in contention for being one of the best teams in football this year if they get those weird losses out of their system.
Yeah, double-digit wins. You look around the league and you start predicting some of these teams. Double-digit wins, I'd say that they've got a unit that if they play well, they can carry their football team. When I look at the Ravens, the floor on both sides of the ball is a teen win count, and I'm going to give them +1. You went -1 because obviously they've dropped some real layups historically, but I just feel like this is a team, this is a quarterback, this is a unit defensively that got better, but more importantly, the offensive side of the ball, they are going to be laser focused this year. I've been talking about this Ravens group since the beginning of the offseason. I truly think that there's no reason why they shouldn't run the table in the AFC and be the representative against whoever it may be, probably that team with wings in the city of brotherly love. But I love the Ravens. 14 is where I'm at.
Yeah, I honestly, I don't want to talk too much more about them because we've, as to use your workout, we've been glazing them just like so hard this offseason, but it's hard not to. It's hard to look at this roster and not just get flat out giddy. And like even some of the weak links, I think are going to be very interesting to watch. Guys like Trenton Simpson, I think this is kind of the time when everyone thought him coming out of Clemson that he could have his, Patrick Queen-esque ascendance because that's the level of athlete he is. Like there's just so much to look forward to with this roster that, yeah, I went 14, Kyle went 14, JP 13, kind of a hater there. No big deal. He's not on the glaze train that we are. Let's get to the Pittsburgh Steelers. 10 wins a season ago. Over-unders 8.5. It is obviously juiced to that over. Minus 120 if you want to go over 8.5. And I'm going to be the hater here. I went with 7. Tell me why I'm wrong. Tell me why this Mike Tomlin is going to continue to go at 500 or above, JP.
Yeah, I went with 9 here because Mike Tomlin was going to get him to 9 games. For some reason, it's a lot like the Miami Heat and Eric Spoelstra, where I don't care what they have on that roster, they're going to go 500. They're going to go at least a few games above 500. But this team is, in all the physical, mental, and emotional ways, this is a 9-8 team. Like there are a lot of questions, especially about the offense and about Aaron Rodgers, if he can still do it at 41 years old, and a defense that now might not have Cam Hayward, which is going to be really big, but they still have the talent to make things weird. They have the talent to really like annoy people in the AFC, so I think that'll get them to 9 games.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it. They've got talent in the right spots to drive people crazy week in, week out. You're going to have to press a different button to handle this team week in, week out in response to what they do. And you're looking at the guy right there, TJ Watt. I would just say 8 wins single-handedly if TJ Watt is healthy. I don't care who's playing quarterback, because to your point, Mike Tomlin's going to have this team ready to play. They're going to be punching up. They're breathing new air, fresh air with Aaron Rodgers, who for the first time in many moons is going to be healthy, albeit 40-plus years old. It's still Aaron Rodgers, okay? There's only a handful of people ever maybe, who have thrown the football better than he can. And as long as that thing's still working, this team's got a shot. I like their running back room. I think they've got some youth that's developing in the offensive line, but it's that defensive front, those edge rushers that at a drop of a hat, they can get the football back for your offense. They're not just going for sacks. Guys like TJ Watt are looking to take that football away.
Yeah, maybe I am being a little pessimistic here, especially given their D-line should even be better this year. Like yeah, TJ Watt, Cameron Hayward, they are on the older side. They're obviously not like getting better. You're probably not going to exceed what they did last year. You now have Derek Harmon. Alex Highsmith may be banged up, but you got Nick Herbig. Like, you have options, you have depth. Defense, I'm not super worried about. I just think this offense is not ready for 2020. You know, like, I just don't think to play in the same sandbox that the Bengals and Ravens are playing, truly, in that division. So because of that, obviously you got the Browns there that everyone's probably going to beat up on, but I just don't see too many easy wins on the schedule. And with 3-1, we saw it last year. He has never been able to avoid hits. He is not Tom Brady. He's going to take hits. And when hits came and dings came, he was gassed. Like, it really robbed him. It robs everyone at that age when you take injury. So that's my biggest worry, is just that, yeah, if he's fully healthy, I think Rodgers can be good. How long is he going to stay fully healthy? Next up, Cincinnati Bengals. 2024, they won 9 games. 9.5 is their over-under. One of the highest ones juiced to the over in the NFL. Minus 140 is that if you want to go over. JP, you're going under, though.
I am going under. I am going to be the hater here. I have them at 8 because this defense is almost the exact same as last year when they were one of the worst defenses in football. If they don't have Trey Hendrickson, who is their ace when it comes to pass rush, when it comes to generating that pressure that forces errant throws, if he's not on the field, I wonder how they're going to get pressure. I think the defensive back room, while talented, still has a long ways to go. And you're also bringing in a new defensive coordinator in Al Golden, who is bringing a different scheme, bringing a different mantra to this team. I think the offense is going to be great again, but the offense was great last year and they won 9 games. This defense might be worse than last year because they don't have Trey Hendrickson.
Possible.
So I'm going to go 8, but just because I need to see that defense in action against real life opponents first.
I think the offense gets even better, but to JP's point, we cannot trust this defense. Okay, I've been burned by this defense before. And in the other part of playing in the National Football League, your kicking game has to be good as well. Go back and look at that Chargers game. There were stops, there were touchdowns offensively, and then there were 3 missed kicks. You got your back against the wall with an opportunity to play your way into the playoffs. You've got, some would argue, the best quarterback in the National Football League, a guy who, if he was on a better team, would have been a shoo-in to win the MVP. So says a lot of people. And, you know, I'll hear him out. But it's the same defense. We're going to be beating our head against the same wall as fans of Joe Burrow this year. He's going to play magnificently. Jamar Chase will have a fantastic season. When T. Higgins was in the lineup, I was like, my God, people would pay him $40 million to be elsewhere. But they can't stop a nosebleed. And that's why I can't in good conscience put these guys in the 11, 12 wins where they should be with a guy like Joe Burrow.
See, I'm going to be devil's advocate here and say I don't think it's the same defense. I think it is going to be much better. And now that's obviously a super low bar to clear, but I think the main difference is Al Golden. I think watching him, what he did at Notre Dame, how they played at a high level, yeah, it's going college to the NFL, but what he does is so much simpler than what Lou Anarumo did. And if you saw this back end, you saw the secondary last year, it was just in shambles from a pure, what the hell am I supposed to do perspective. Like their assignment assuredness was god awful. And for Lou Anarumo defense, like he comes with different game plans every week. He's a kitchen sink sort of DC. It wasn't a talent to scheme match. Like those guys just were not capable of doing what Lou Anarumo asked them to be doing. I think they can, like they have guys who can play man coverage. Dax Hill can play man coverage. CJ Turner can play man coverage. They can do some simpler things and get better results. So I think it's going to be better there. And you don't need to get too much better to win 10 games when you got Joe Burrow, when you got Jamar Chase, when you got T. Higgins. So that's my argument for why I think they'll win 10 games. And also, like, when you got Amarius Mims now, who has looked better. I thought he looked better in the preseason. He should be better going from year 1 to year 2. Now, how long will he play before, you know, he tweaks a hammy? who knows? But I think it just at least should be a little bit better this year. Let's get to the Cleveland Browns, who they won 3 games last year. Their over-under is 5.5, and this is the highest juice to the under. So if you want to go over 5.5, you're getting plus 125. It's the highest juice to the under in the entire NFL. No one thinks. Some people do, but not a lot of people think they're going over that win total. And, well, none of us think it. I'm going with 4. Kyle's going with 4. And, JP, you're going with 3 wins for this Cleveland Browns team.
Yeah, I've spoken to many Cleveland Browns fans who are like, we are going to be watching the Jaguars more often than we're watching the Browns this year. But it's going to be a rough year. But I think most Browns fans understand that it's going to be a rough year because the offense just – there's so many parts where you're like, oh, I could maybe see it. Maybe Jerry Jeudy has a fun year. Maybe the offensive line gets healthy, but they haven't been healthy in a long time. Maybe the defense really turns it up a notch again. But all those questions, and the biggest question about who's going to be quarterback week in and week out, it's just tough for me to see anything more than 3 games.
When you're on a team like the Cleveland Browns, and unfortunately I have been on teams like what the Cleveland Browns are experiencing, you're kind of waiting for that cure-all, that tsunami to come through and wipe everything out so that you can get a fresh start. And until then, you kind of look around and you're just like, yeah, I guess we're just in survival mode again until they can really get a power wash of the entire thing. I feel like this is going to be the conversation for the Cleveland Browns. And it makes me sick every single time that we talk about the Browns, because a company with the Cleveland Browns in sports media, you're going to have a graphic, and the graphic is always Myles Garrett, who is otherworldly talented, who is such a great representative and who you would want to lead your defense. But we're wasting a talent like that because of the situation the Cleveland Browns have put themselves in. And it's just unfortunate. It makes me a little bit sad every time, JP.
And they've already had injury.
It's really unfortunate.
They were at injury bug. They've already obviously been rolling through multiple different quarterbacks. I imagine it's Joe Flacco. The biggest thing, though, about why I'm not just thinking he can recapture what he did 2 years ago and this Browns team can look like the playoff team that they were that year is the offensive line was not the same. Without Bill Callahan, they took a massive step back last year. The same guys, Joel Bitonio, Wyatt Teller, did not look like they were 2 years ago. So that's my biggest thing, is that you're playing either a 40-year-old quarterback or a rookie behind an offensive line that is likely going to be a bottom 10 unit in the NFL. Not a recipe for success.
Put Shador out there, dude. He's used to bad offensive lines. Just ask him.
That, honestly, I mean, if you're a fan of the Browns, you would rather see that.
If Shador gets named starter, I am buying the Cleveland Browns package on Paramount Plus. I'm going to get Paramount Plus and I'm going to watch all of it. It's Shador.
I'm playing perfect timing all week. If he gets named the starter, that's the pregame hype song.
All right, let's get to the AFC South. Houston Texans, your champs a season ago. They won 10 games. They're over under this year, 9.5 games. You can get plus 100 if you want to go over that. And I'm buying them. I went 11. I just, those graphics, the who's stopping this offense graphics. Who's stopping this defense? Who's scoring points on this defense of the Houston Texans? That's why I'm buying. I think this is just going to be one of the best defenses in the NFL. And, there's 2 ways to win championships, and that's one of them. And obviously having that and a franchise quarterback, that's a recipe for, in my opinion, 11 wins here.
I went 9 here because I do think that defense is going to be fantastic. I think what DeMeco Ryans has done in rebuilding San Francisco's defense in Houston this quickly is one of the more commendable things that's in the NFL right now. But offensively, outside of the offensive line issues, you're going to be playing a lot of rookies with the starters. I mean, I like Jaden Higgins and Jalen Well coming out, but these are rookie receivers coming in for a team that immediately wants to win. There's going to be some growing pains there. The offensive line still kind of figuring out what their best 5 is. And you have a new offensive coordinator, Nick Caley, who I like, and I like the idea of what Nick Caley is going to bring, but we have to see it in action first. So this team feels like a 9-8, and that's not any disrespect to the Texans and what they've built. It's just the game that you play when you're trying to recreate the offensive line as you go along.
Yeah, I see a tough-ass team. I see a gritty team that's identity is we are going to play, we have no problem winning football games with baseball scores. And you point to who is stopping this unit. I just think about the fire-breathing dragons on the edge and the things they can do on that back end with all the skill they've got. But it's all going to come down to how that offensive line gels. And, I scratch my head when they let Laramie Tunsil walk to Washington, and I'll still scratch my head about it until I see that they got in return 2, 3, 4 guys that can step in there and play, because CJ Stroud needs his get back. Okay. He lost his boo and now he needs it back. And I fully anticipate him doing his job. But as we've said so many times on this show before, offensive line matters. And if they don't have the right unit out there, the strongest point of their team, CJ Stroud, in my opinion, is not going to be able to showcase that.
Yeah, to go back to the defense just for a second, because I do like the offensive line. Everyone knows it could be a disaster, right? But I do think schematically they can at least do more than what they did last year to mitigate how much it can be a problem. But defensively, they had the lowest completion percentage against in the NFL last season, the second lowest success rate against in the NFL. They should have been, they should have been like the Eagles. They just gave up a lot of big plays. And some of that was, some of that was Eric Murray. Some of that was, a rookie safety on the back end. Some of that was a rookie corner across from Derek Stingley. Those guys aren't rookies anymore. I don't think we'll see some of the same mistakes. And then CJ Gardner-Johnson, who had one of the biggest roller coasters I've ever seen. He goes from the guy tore his ACL to the guys actually might practice next week, and he's definitely going to be back for week 1 now. So adding him in place of Eric Murray, I think is a massive upgrade and going to pay massive dividends. That's just like, this is right up there with the Broncos, right up there with the Ravens of just, you're going to have to pack your lunch every time you want to pass.
Win because of.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. So that's why I go with 11 wins for this Texans team. All right, Indianapolis Colts. 8 wins last season, over under 7.5, a very neutral line there. That's at -110 right now. And well, it's neutral because we are split on it. I'm going 7. JP's going 7. Kyle's going 8. It just, Vegas feels like they hit this one.
Yeah, I mean, the biggest thing outside of quarterback is you're starting two new guys on the offensive line from a unit that was actually pretty good last season. We're able to run the ball well. I really want to see if Bortolini and Matt Gonsalves can really gel together. It's going to help having Quentin Nelson at left guard. It's going to help having continuity of Braden Smith at right tackle. But there's so many questions about this offense, even outside of quarterback. Can this receiver room be more consistent? I think if they can just get this, the receiver room is really weird in where they'll have a great game for like 2.5 quarters and then fall apart the rest of the game. And that just completely sets the tone for the rest of the season. I think the defense is going to be good. I think as long as you had DeForest Buckner and Grover Stewart, who might be the most underrated defensive tackle tandem combo in the NFL, just in the way that they force offensive linemen to really come in and be physical with them. Grover Stewart's incredible at just making teams not want to run at him. I think defense is going to be good with Lou Anarumo calling their defense, but there's so many questions on this offense that I can't have them at more than 7.
Look, you got to go one better than last year, right? I mean, Anthony Richardson gets another year. You bring in the break glass in case of emergency with Daniel Jones. You draft Tyler Warren, who I feel like is an immediate boon to your offense with all the things that he can do. You talked about having a unit on the offensive line that has success running the football. Well, stick to that, and let's hope that Anthony takes the next step as a quarterback. As it pertains to that defensive front, that's a nightmare. You get one guy in the middle who's a real threat, whether it be in the run or the pass. And you talked about Grover being a hog. That was like Akeem Hicks when I played, like just stay away from 96. But they've got Defoe on the other side. So it's like, where are you going to go? They've got dudes on the edge as well. And as far as the inconsistency in that receiver room, I think the onus is on the quarterback to keep these guys involved. And every single time that you line up as a receiver, you need to have the understanding that if you get open, you need to have the feeling that if you make the right read, if you get open on time, the ball will be in your hands. And if it's not, you're not going to be all there. And there breeds the inconsistency in the receiver room as well.
I think it's also inconsistency is almost built into how this receiving core was put together in that you have too many role players. You have too many guys who have to do, and Mitchell, he's obviously, we talked about him just being this uber inconsistent guy to begin with, and that's going to need to get cleaned up over the course of his career. But Josh Downs has to play the slot, right? He's like a pure slot receiver, can't do much more than that. Alec Pierce is like, has to just run the vertical tree. He cannot do anything outside of run the vertical tree. He does that all right, but it's just like, if you want to try to get him on a slant, he's not going to get open. And then Michael Pittman is just like purely a possession receiver. You want to attack Michael Pittman down the football field, that ain't going to work either. So they have this hodgepodge sort of group that you have to almost put into the exact right pieces, exact right places every time, or it's not going to look great. So I wanted to buy the Colts. I really did. I love what they've done with this roster. And I think there's two places where we'll be obviously determine where this season goes for the Colts. One is quarterback. Obviously, we know that, however that shakes out. Then two is just Latu. If he turns into, I had a really high grade on him coming out. I thought he was, had so many pass moves at his disposal. I thought he has great bend for the edge. I think his combination can work, but he was not dominant as a rookie. He was solid, not dominant. If he goes to, takes that second year leap to dominance, and they finally have a guy, because they haven't had a guy since, Robert Mathis in that defensive front that's really been a high-end pass rusher. If they get a guy, that can transform this defense because they've done so much in the back end. So wide range of outcomes, in my opinion, for the Colts. They're well coached, but I'm going to need to see it before I believe it. All right, Jacksonville Jaguars. 2024, they won 4 games. Vegas is buying them, and Jags fans are buying them even more. 7.5 is the over-under, and it's minus 125 if you want to bet that over, and it looks like we're all betting that over, JP.
Being a Jaguars fan, I emotionally hedge again for a lot of Jaguars teams because I just know it can all fall apart very quickly. But I'm really excited about this offense. I think the offense can be really fun, even just in what you saw in their preseason game against the Steelers. It wasn't all like fireworks, but it just looked sharper. It looked crisper. It looked like there was more precision. You saw a lot more precision from Trevor Lawrence. And I think that he is going to, when healthy, if he can remain healthy, he's going to help bring the offensive line up a little bit, because when he's healthy, he's shown the ability to kind of mitigate pressure pretty well. And if you have Travis Hunter playing well at receiver, with Brian Thomas Jr., with Liam Cohen calling plays, the offense should be good. My biggest worry is the defense, and specifically the middle of the field, because Foye Oluokun and Devin Lloyd are good run defenders, but the middle of the field leaves a lot to worry about. I believe they were one of the worst teams at defending the middle of the field last year by DVOA. So you don't really change the personnel there because you're kind of locked into them. You add Eric Murray, and you're just sort of hoping that you can get some better play out of Lloyd and Oluokun in the middle of the field. But I'm excited about this offense. I think they are in a position where if they can catch a heater like they did in 2022, if they can ride a win streak, they can make the playoffs. But I'm not expecting playoffs for this team.
Yeah, don't let Trevor Lawrence get confident. I mean, it's something that you never, like, if you're the opposing team, you never want to see a guy with that much talent. And we've seen it. Let's face it. Trevor Lawrence is talented. You throw a creative offensive mind in there with a fresh set of ideas. It's like that Cleveland Browns conversation. They had the tidal wave, and now it's Liam Cohen's, and he's got 2 great receivers. Well, he's got 1 great receiver and 1 very young, talented receiver. It remains to be seen how they use him. But this offense will be fun. I don't expect them being a dominant team, but I fully anticipate their offense week in, week out, being able to compete with whoever's out there because they're 2 options at the receiver position.
JP, I want to hear your take on this because I'm of the opinion that so obviously the biggest weakness on offense is the offensive line. Not only because their receiving room and running back room is obviously not a weakness, but also because it has some big question marks. I think, though, that it can outperform, and when you have an offense coordinator and Liam Cohen, that there's enough here where you could scheme around it, you could still get the job done, and this can still be like a top 10 offense in the NFL. Am I crazy to say that?
I don't think you're crazy because the offensive line is talented. Anton Harrison is a first-round pick. Walker Little was believed to be a first-round talent before getting hurt. He has been a guy that's consistently pushed Cam Robinson for most of his career. You have talent at the tackle positions, and you filled it in with guys who can help raise the floor of the offensive line. I think the biggest thing for the offensive line is getting Trevor Lawrence healthy and keeping Trevor Lawrence healthy, because when Lawrence is healthy, like I said, he's done a pretty good job of mitigating pressure. And he's a good quarterback at avoiding pressure. It's just keeping him healthy is going to be the biggest point in this offense. And I also think reducing the margin or widening the margin for error for this offense and for Trevor Lawrence as a passer is going to be huge. And I think that's something that Cohen has really worked on this offense. There's going to be a lot of yards after the catch opportunities for all the skill position guys. I think Brenton Strange could have a really fun year. I think he's going to be a really fun receiving option at tight end, but I think this offense is going to be good. The defense is really just one of my biggest question marks.
Yeah, that D-line has to play better. I mean, the talent's there. It just has to play better than it did last year. But I'm going 10 wins. Kyle's going 10 wins. JP's going 8 wins. We're all saying over for the Jacksonville Jaguars. All right, last one in the AFC South here. Tennessee Titans. 3 wins a season ago. Obviously, they had the number 1 overall pick. 5.5 is Vegas's win projection. And this one has the highest juice to the over in the entire NFL right now. It's minus 150 if you want to go over. So Titans fans, Nashville faithful, are buying in to Cam Ward and company. None of us are, though. We all went under 5.5 wins, though. JP, why?
The reason I went 5 is because you're getting a new quarterback, and that's going to get you up from where you were last year. But I still have a lot of questions about the offensive line gelling. I think they have a great floor raiser in Bill Callahan, and they have the talent. I just want to see it gel together a little better this year. And then, you just need more secondary receiving options outside of Calvin Ridley. You need some more help in that area. I think the defense can be I'm not going to say the Titans defense is going to be good. I think they can be sneaky competitive. I think they have everything up front to really win through the interior of that defense with Devondre Sweat and Jeffrey Simmons. I'm actually a pretty big fan of Jarvis Brownlee in the secondary. If Jarvis Sneed can be healthy, then maybe you're looking at a team that is feisty. Maybe you're looking at a team that's sort of similar to the Texans, and where you're just going to try and win games with baseball scores and hope your quarterback can elevate the floor and ceiling of this offense. But I think just by having Cam Ward and having a new quarterback under center, you're going to get maybe a couple more wins out of the team than you did last year.
Yeah, I mean, new quarterback, first pick. This guy's immensely talented, and the belief level goes up in the building immediately. And when you see this guy work and you hear him talk, it sounds like an 8-year vet, 9-year vet. And those things are really important, and that's priceless. So often we talk about these young players not having the right mindset. They're not mature enough yet. That's not an issue with this young man. So for the Tennessee Titans, they may be fighting from the bottom up, but I fully anticipate them competing week in, week out. And to your point, their defense has teeth up front as well.
See, I don't get twisted. Love Cam Ward. I super high grade on Cam Ward. I think he's going to be the guy there. I actually have I'm so confident he's going to be the guy there. It just, that's who he is. He'll be a franchise quarterback, even if, maybe doesn't end up being Patrick Mahomes. I think he will transform this franchise. But you can only put so much lipstick on a pig. It's still going to be a pig. This roster stinks. It's just not a good roster. It's not a good O-line in front of them. Injuries have already struck. I mean, they had one of the worst off seasons I can remember last year with the guys they signed. Lloyd Cushamary tears his Achilles. L'Jarius Sneed still working back from his knee and may not be healthy to start the season. So I just don't see the talent walking through that door, unfortunately. And with everyone else kind of coming up in that division and adding more to those rosters, the Titans, they didn't add a lot. They didn't add a lot from a team that was the number 1 overall seed besides Cam Ward. They kind of added a lot the year before that. They just need those guys to perform, and I just don't see it happening, unfortunately. So I went 3 wins. Kyle went 5. JP went 5. All right, let's take a quick break. After that, AFC East, AFC West coming up next.
Critics are buzzing about the new season of Yellow Jackets.
This is not healthy.
Yellow Jackets' new season now streaming on the Paramount Plus with Showtime plan.
All right, Buffalo Bills. They won 13 games a year ago. 12.5 is their Vegas projection, but a lot of people go in the under. It's plus 120 if you want to go over that 12.5 number. And, Kyle and I are going under it. JP, this is your highest win projection total. You went 14 for the Buffalo Bills.
Yeah, part of it is playing in the AFC East, where I think they're going to run over that division once again. But this team is built so well, and they have built a formula around winning football through the offensive line, through that run game, through Josh Allen being incredibly good at throwing the football. And then you're getting another year of Keon Coleman. You're hoping that he can at least win in contested catch areas and kind of elevating that receiver room on the outside, just giving them somebody who, if it's 3rd and 4 and you need a first down, you can throw that fade route to Keon Coleman. You can throw that slant route to Keon Coleman. That's sort of what he did at Florida State. And I think the defense, while I still have questions about how they're built philosophically, I think they are still kind of in the, if we can only stop the run with 6 people and we'll sling Taron Johnson into the box as a run fit. I still don't think they're built to win like that with having undersized defensive tackles. But if they can get to 3rd down, if they can continue to win in the turnover margin, they should blow that win projection out the water.
Yeah, I don't care if the sky is falling around Josh Allen and everybody on the roster gets the flu. They're going to get 10 wins. And you talked about that offensive line, and I'll talk about them till I'm blue in the face. But it helps having a superhuman on 4th down, on short yardage with Josh Allen. It helps a lot every down when you've got a group that's going to impose their will, and that's what the Buffalo Bills have. They also have the benefit of playing in that cold weather stadium outside later on in the season. Teams don't want to go to Buffalo to play. Quite frankly, it's like Halloween. Don't send me to Buffalo anytime after that. I think they have a tough team. I love what their head coach has done with their program, and obviously it's all because of Josh Allen there at the quarterback position.
I think the one reason I went under, and I'm going to disagree with you here, JP, is I think they drop a game to the Jets this year. Because you said it, they're trying to stop the run with 6. They have this light box. It's one of the lightest in the NFL. The Jets, that's what they are built to eat up right now. They are built to go to town on those 6-man fronts, those 280-pound DTs. They constructed this offense to demolish just that. And maybe can't beat a lot of other teams in the NFL, but I think that is what they can beat with that new look offensive line, with Justin Fields at quarterback, and with someone like Braylon Allen, who's 240 pounds at running back. So I think they drop a game to the Jets. I think the Patriots are on the come up. I just think there are some L's in that division that they will take, and I worry about injuries striking this team, specifically along the offensive line or in the secondary. Those happen. They're just thin. It's thin. The front, starting 22, elite, top 5 in the NFL, no doubt about it. After that, they do not have the depth that some of these other contenders have. So I went 11, just in case, just hedging there. But yeah, I think just on paper, it should be a 13-plus win team should they stay healthy. All right, Miami Dolphins, 8 wins a season ago, 7.5 is their over/under. -110 is where that number is, but we all say under 7.5. JP.
The Dolphins are the most hypothetical team in the NFL, where they could be good if so many things have to work out for this team to be good. If Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle can remain healthy, if the offensive line remains healthy, and you get Jonas Savaiinaea and Patrick Paul playing really well, if you can get healthy years from Bradley Chubb and Jalen Phillips, if you can get somebody in the secondary room to play well outside of Minkah Fitzpatrick. There's so many what ifs for this team that it makes it hard to believe in them. But I also just think they're going to get a few games just off of there's going to be a game where that offense goes supernova. There's going to be a game where everything works right and it looks awesome. And we're just hey, they might have found the juice again. But they're still one of the worst short yardage teams in the NFL. And when you get to those games late in the season where you need to win within those margins, I just don't know if they can do it.
The thing that I love about this team is their quarterback. Tua is tailor-made to run this Mike McDaniel offense. And when it's right, when they've got the running backs on the field, when they've got receivers bought in and present in mind, this offense is as electric as we've seen. It's a track meet. It's like when I went to Oregon and we used to practice next to the Oregon track team, and I'd say those guys are just different. Those gals over there are just faster than all of us. D'Anthony, you think you're fast, but that guy's got a gold medal around his neck. That's what it's like playing the Dolphins when they're right. And I went and watched them in the joint practice, and Darren Waller's on the sideline. Teron Armstead is working with Patrick Paul in kind of a developmental role, and then you get Tyreek Hill. He's on the sideline. If Teron Armstead's out of the league, but if he's in the league, this is a different conversation. Patrick Paul might be able to play somewhere else on that line. Darren Waller is in the lineup, and if he's Darren Waller, then we're talking about maybe 8 wins if it's the guy that we remember. But there's so many hypotheticals, to your point, JP. There's so many things that weigh in the balance. We don't know what it's going to be in Miami. We don't know if that defense can stay healthy. We don't know if Tua is going to be on the field week in, week out, because unfortunately history has dictated to us that a stiff breeze, an inadvertent hit to Tua can send him down the wrong path. And it's funny. It's not funny, but that's being a Dolphins fan right now. It all hangs in the balance.
Yeah. I'm sorry for laughing. No, I'm not. It just is unfortunate. It just is for the Miami Dolphins that is such a big worry, and that's why I'm going to the under here. It's just that, like you said, history shows that Tua going 17 games is an anomaly, unfortunately. And Zach Wilson going to win you games. Quinn Ewers going to win you games. They have not. They look like, Mike McDaniel.
Not if Austin Booker's on the field. Sack.
But, and then the other part of it is just their secondary is awful. It's awful. There's no sugarcoating. It's awful. So they are going to be, there's a handful of teams this year that are just every weekend's going to be an awesome game to watch. They're one of them because, the total points scored in Dolphins games this year is probably going to be the highest in the NFL. Bengals are one of them. Jaguars are one of them, where it's just like the incongruity between elite offense potential and just god-awful defense. It's going to make for some interesting games, but I just cannot see the Dolphins. Again, with my opinion that the Jets and the Patriots are on a somewhat of a come-up, I see them actually. I had them with the fewest amount of wins in that division with 5. So let's get to the Jets, who they themselves won 5 games a year ago. 6.5 is their over/under. It's at plus 120. I think people are saying, "Hey, this is still the Jets. We're gonna for them to win 7 games. We're gonna actually have to have a little have to see it before we believe it here." But I'm believing it. I'm going 7. Kyle's going 7. JP, you're of the former category. You're going 5 here.
Yeah, I'm going 5 here, largely because I think that this team is going to be good in 2026. I think this year is just for finding out who is going to be on this roster. Who is going to be a part of this Aaron Glenn era. But one of my favorite quirky stats or predictions for the year is the Jets are going to lead the NFL in rushing attempts because they are going to run the football really well. They have an offensive line built to run the ball. They have 2 good running backs, and they have a quarterback who can obviously be a factor with his legs. I still have yet to see what he's going to do with his arm, but you have talent with Garrett Wilson. You have a talented in-between game receiver with Alan Lazard, but everything else, a lot of questions. I think Mason Taylor is going to play a big role in this offense. And the defense just, if you can win games, like Kyle said, with baseball scores, if you can turn every game into being an infighter in boxing and you're just going slugfest, you're going to be able to steal a few. But I just worry about the quarterback limiting the ceiling for this version of the Jets.
I just think about all of the fantastic plays I watched Justin Fields make at Soldier Field. And all these times they're going to go forgotten because of the new regime at quarterback. Well, he gets an opportunity to go to Pittsburgh. Obviously, things don't shake out exactly how he'd like. But now he gets to go to the biggest city, the biggest media market in the National Football League in what I think is a massive year, obviously, for him. And for Aaron Glenn, it's the culture. It's what kind of defense are we going to put out there? You know what kind of defense Aaron Glenn is going to have. But to Mike's point, the investment in the offensive line, when Aaron came to New York, they brought in a bunch of old heads, vets, to play offensive line because they were names that somebody's son recognized on Madden. They went and drafted some bad boys the last couple of years, and they are going to run the hell out of the football, which is why I love JP's over on the rush attempts. And to be honest, That's how you win football games. You beat the hell out of people. And they've got young men who are going to be run blocking all season. And that's how you use young men, because the old guys, they don't want to bang their head 50 times a game. You tell some of those young guys, you don't have to pass protect. We're just going to run it. And I'm like, yes, coach. Yes, coach. Please. That's how we're going to win.
Yeah, I've said this before, but I like the Jets this season. They're just one of the more intriguing teams to me, just to see how their season ends up, because they are decidedly zagging when the rest of the NFL is zigging. They are saying, everyone wants to defend with 220-pound linebackers. Well, we're going to have a quarterback and a running back that are heavier than your linebackers, and good luck stopping them. And I love the rushing attempts thing, because not only should it just be like rushing attempts are, this is a 55-45 rush to pass sort of play calling, but then every year 15% of Justin Fields dropbacks end up as rushing attempts anyway. So it's like, this is a team that's just built to move the ball on the ground. I think they can play complementary football, because the defense, it was, prior to whatever the hell happened last year, and I know they lost DJ Reed, and it's not quite the same unit, but it was a top 5 defense each of the 2 years prior with Robert Saleh. And I think Aaron Glenn, what he does best, fits what this secondary does best, and I think it can work. I don't think it can work to go to the playoffs, but I think it can work to win at least a few games there this season. So, oh my gosh, I lost my train of thought. Where's my sheet? Oh no. Where's my?
Okay, so.
All right, no, I got it next. All right, here we go. New England Patriots. 2024, they won 4 games. Over under 8.5.
This is awesome.
At plus 100. I'm going with 10. Kyle's going with 9. JP, as you said off the top when you mentioned the Bills, you're not buying any of the overs for the rest of the AFC East here. You're going under 7.
The main reason I'm going under, again, I'm emotionally hedging for this team to be bad, but a competitive bad, because I still have some questions about the sustainability of the secondary at with the safeties. I wonder if Kyle Duggar is going to be on this team come the regular season, but the offense should be really, really fun. I think, again, kind of with what we mentioned with the Jets zagging where everyone else is zigging, I think the Patriots are sort of doing something similar with Josh McDaniels. They're bringing back the physicality and the gap scheme of old New England Patriots football. And that sounds awesome. I think with what you saw with what Will Campbell did in his first preseason game, where he was taking, I believe it was Noah Igbenogany. He had a rough game, but Will Campbell was taking Igbenogany to Boston, literally. He was taking him to the Boston airport on every toss play. And I think that physicality, that mentality, that is going to mean something for this team. They know how they want to win. They're going to be aggressive up front. They're going to be physical on both sides of the line. I think if they can really get something from their receiver core, they can get Stephon Diggs back healthy from the ACL injury. If Kyle Williams can be the guy that everybody thinks he can be, then they could probably go over. But I'm sort of hedging on, it's going to be tough for Diggs to come back off that injury. It's going to be tough for a rookie receiver to immediately come in and be a great receiver in the NFL. It's going to be tough for the Patriots this year, but I could see them going well over.
Okay, I'm going to take you, since we're talking a little patriotism, I'm going to take you guys in the history machine, all right? And Mike's been here before with me. I think Mike enjoys these now. He doesn't think I'm totally insane. So in the 19th century, there lived a young man named Theodore Roosevelt. This was around the time of the Spanish-American War. Okay, it was following the explosion of the USS Maine in Havana Harbor, which led to conflict. Teddy Roosevelt wanted to fix this problem, and he said, I can go find you some men to fix this problem. And they said, all right, Teddy, but you're not going to use our men. You have to go find your own. And I'll take a brief pause and just let you understand and remember that last year's Patriot team was so talent poor that there was a large contingency of people that were not willing to put their draft pick out there on the field. I was part of that camp at the beginning, and then I watched him at the end. Drake May is Teddy Roosevelt. Well, Drake May and Mike Vrabel are Teddy Roosevelt in this one, because they bring Teddy Roosevelt, Mike Vrabel in, and they say, go get your own guys. and he goes around the league and he finds some of the baddest men that he could find. Now, Teddy Roosevelt did the same thing back in the day. He went to Native American reservations. He went to football colleges. He went to, steel plants, and he found the toughest, most hardened people that he could. And more importantly, he found guys that could ride horses. Mike Vrabel has a bunch of guys that can ride horses now. And he's got a bunch of guys that are going to carry that flag for the New England Patriots. And now we're talking about a team that is potentially going to be eking out maybe 10 wins this year in a dream state. It's going to be a lot of fun. America's eyes will be on the New England Patriots. For whatever reason, Drake May has the juice. People really love Drake May, myself included. He's aw shucks. He's bigger than he's supposed to be. He can run. He's got everything, the total package. So for this team, they're on the up and up. Mike Vrabel, Teddy Roosevelt, the Rough Riders, the New England Patriots.
They definitely brought in some Rough Riders, though. That's why I'm going 10 wins, is that you can almost just throw out what this team was last year and just because it's not the same team. There's over half the stars are new. Your quarterbacks from year 1 to year 2 make this big leap. You have a new coaching staff. And the guys they brought in, whether it's Carlton Davis, whether it's Robert Spillane, whether it's Milton Williams, whether it's Will Campbell, whether it's Travion Henderson, Matt Collins, those are tone setter players. They play a brand of football that matches their head coach that ain't going to look like what it looked like last year. So for all those reasons, and they have, on paper, it's like a bottom 5 easiest schedule in the NFL. I don't think it's just from looking at it. Like some of the teams they're playing are better than they were a year ago, but it's still not a hard schedule. It's not what if you're in the NFC North or you're in the NFC East this year. It's nothing like what those guys are facing. So for all those reasons, give me the over 10 wins for this New England Patriots team. All right, AFC West. Kansas City Chiefs, champs a year ago. 15 wins last year. Over-under is 11.5 this year, and that's at plus 105. Some people are selling this Chiefs team. JP, you're not one of them.
So I'm going to use another reference here, and I'm going to the world of pro wrestling. This is the Chiefs this year feel like when Scott Hall and Kevin Nash left the WWF for WCW, they brought in fake Razor Ramon and fake Diesel, and everybody's like, they look similar, but it feels really weird. Like this feels different. And I think this Chiefs team feels like a different team than before. I think they're younger at a lot of important positions. I think they are going to be relying a lot more on their drafting that they've done. I believe that with Jaden Hicks being the new starter after Justin Reed left, I think Jaden Hicks is going to be a good starter for them. You're relying on your young receivers to develop. But as long as you have the core of what made the Chiefs, which is Andy Reid, Patrick Mahomes, Spags, and Chris Jones, they should still be one of the better teams in the AFC. They should still be one of the better teams in the NFL, but it's just going to feel different this year. So I think they do drop a few games in the division. I think the division's a little better. I think they lose a couple games, but as long as you have that core formula, I don't care if you have fake Razor Ramon, fake Diesel, you could have Gilbert instead of Goldberg. They're going to be really good.
Yeah, I mean, look, we saw this team find new ways to win week in, week out last year. And we sat here every single week and tried to pick apart why they weren't going to be the team that made a run. And obviously they made a run. It didn't finish the way they wanted them to. But to your point, this is a new group. This is a group that doesn't have the scars from last year. They're trying to figure out what their identity is on offense, who are going to be the guys that step up in the volume space that Travis Kelce has kind of left a void for. And I know Kelce's still there, and he's going to be involved in the offense, but I want to know who's featured. And young players like Rashee Rice, who, when he was healthy, was as prolific a receiver in the national. It was like Rashee Rice and Nico Collins and Jamar Chase were like the three most exciting guys to watch at the beginning of the year last year. I think they're going to pick up where they left off there. I think Patrick is a man on a mission. And just like, you don't mess with John Wick's car or John Wick's dog, you don't speak ill of Patrick Mahomes because he will come for you.
Yeah, the one thing that, it's easy to point out this defense and just be like, that's not a championship defense. It's just on paper. It's not what they looked like when they won their last Super Bowl. And the thing, though, is offensively, because they've kind of been on this just like slow leak where it's just they've gone from the pinnacle, being one of the best offenses of all time. What was that, back 2018, 2019? Just kind of every year, it's just like, they're kind
2021, they were pretty damn good too.
And they were, I mean, like, yes, but they were 9th in EPA last year. And that was not a dominant unit whatsoever. And they did sneak by to get 15 and to get to the Super Bowl. I think it can get back to top 3, though. I think this unit with this receiving core, it's the best receiving core he's had since Tyreek left. And if Josh Simmons is who you says he is, Kyle, who he looked like in the first 6 games at Ohio State last year before he tore his patella, and who he looked like against Baron Browning his first game against the Arizona Cardinals in the preseason. If he's that, this could be back to that Chiefs offense. It can be. It should be. I mean, truly. Like, if it's not, it is then on Patrick Mahomes. I think he does lose his crown of being called the best quarterback in the NFL if this isn't an elite offense this season. So for all those reasons, they will be at this number. Is it over? Is it under? I probably should not be betting against Patrick Mahomes. I'll just say that. Chargers up next. 2024, they won 11 games. 9.5, though, is their over-under. -120 if you want to go over. So a lot of Chargers fans, all dozen of them, going over for the Chargers this year. I'm going under, though, JP, but you're going just slightly over with 10 wins.
I flipped this number with 10. I flipped it with the Broncos back and forth because I think that these teams, like when you look at the Broncos and the Chargers, I think it's like, okay, I think the Broncos had the better offensive line, especially with Rashawn Slater. I think the Chargers defense can be really, really good this year with another year with Jesse Minter. I think Deion Henley's going to play really well. You've kind of figured out what your cornerback rotation is. Maybe I'm just giving a lot of wins to Justin Herbert and that passing game being better than it was last year. I think with the pieces that they added, you've got to figure out some form of explosiveness. I think Keandre Lambert-Smith's going to play a role in that. Trey Harris, when he gets up to speed, is going to play a role in that. You have all the pieces around you to really be explosive. I think Amari and Hampton could be a fun, another version of the explosion that they asked for in that offense. And I just think this defense is going to be really good once again. Maybe I'm just really bullish on the Chargers. Maybe I'm just really bullish on Jim Harbaugh and Jesse Minter and what they have done to that defense to win them a bunch of games. But I'm a believer.
Yeah, same way it's like set it and forget it with the Mike Tomlin win total every year. It's the same kind of effect that a guy like Jim Harbaugh has on a building. And they've built this team the right way. I mean, they built it at the tackle position. They've got the quarterback. I loved Ladd McConkey last year. Let's hope that entirety of the receiver room can come along and help Justin Herbert out. But flat out, here's the deal with the Chargers. Rashawn Slater's down. So one of the strongest points of your football team is going to be on the sideline. I don't even know if he's going to be healthy enough to stand on the sideline. He's probably going to be in the suite, with his leg elevated. And when he was healthy, you guys didn't show up in a big game. Now, I know a lot was going on in Los Angeles, and I empathize with anybody trying to show up to work and, play a kid's game during a time of emergency. But this has kind of become the MO for the Los Angeles Chargers. Let's hope that Jim Harbaugh has rid the entirety of the taste from the last regime out of these guys' locker room, and we can see this Chargers team maybe playing in a meaningful game with some juice come playoff time.
See, the one thing, and I wanted to love this Chargers team, and the injury, it just gave me same old Chargers vibes to Rashawn Slater, unfortunately. And then I just look at this defense, and yeah, they had great results last year. But the talent is not top 10 talent yet. It's not even close to top 10 talent. I mean, you put this on paper around the league. If they didn't have Jesse Minter, if they didn't have Jim Harbaugh, you would say this is like the 20th best defensive. It's just not that good. It's just not, unfortunately, that talented. They have your best pass rusher is 34 years old. It just does not have the juice to, I think, get the same results, especially when every single offense in that division should be better, right? Broncos offense should be better. Raiders offense should be like night and day better. And the Chiefs offense we just talked about should be getting better. So I think there's a few more holes, just like a few little, and I want to, again, buy into the offense. But as soon as that injury struck, I'm like, I just don't see this team. I just see it being third fiddle in the AFC West. I think they've been passed up by the Broncos, and the Chiefs obviously are still the Chiefs there. So I went 9 wins. Denver Broncos up next. 2024, they won 10 games. Over under is 9.5 for them at -115 if you want to go over. And this is one that I've bet a lot. I went 12 wins. I'm buying the Broncos this year. I think this defense is sick. And It just, they won 10 games with a rookie quarterback. It's, unless he's Baker Mayfield, just every single other rookie quarterback has gotten better from year 1 to year 2. And, CJ Stroud, you can say him too, but like the situation got way worse around him. I don't know how much that was CJ Stroud. So JP, you're not buying them. You think last year, maybe a little aberration. You think 9 wins is where you're going here.
Again, I flipped between 10 and 9 with the Chargers and the Broncos here. I wish I believed in this receiving core for the Broncos as much as I believed in their offensive line. I feel like the Broncos receivers are there are a lot of specialists. Like we said with the Colts, there are a lot of guys who do certain specific roles. And it's like building an NFL offense, but only using like the 2019 Brooklyn Nets, who are just a bunch of role players who are just having a good time. Like it feels like you're kind of building it out of that. But I just wish that they had a little more punch in that receiver room. I wish they had a little bit more explosion. I wish that, I think that RJ Harvey can be a little more explosive. I think J.K. Dobbins can be the explosive element that they need in that run game. But I have questions about some of that sustainability, and sort of similar to how we talk about the Chargers defense and how, like, if they didn't have Jesse Minter and Jim Harbaugh coaching up that defense, where would they be? I sort of feel similar with the Broncos offense. I think Sean Payton is a phenomenal designer of offense and a phenomenal play caller. I just wonder how high can the scheme elevate you when it comes to, you're playing defenses that are going to be really good. The Chiefs defense, I think, is going to be really good. I think the Chargers defense, like I said, is going to be really good. I want to see, I guess it's just, I want to see more from this offense before I can fully believe. Defense is going to be awesome, though.
Obviously, the defense will be great, and I'm in wholehearted agreement with you as it pertains to Sean Payton being, brilliant architect like Frank Lloyd Wright of offense. And there's a lot of these guys in the league now. We're spoiled. But the thing that I saw that impressed me the most, and it kind of gives a good omen for moving forward as a Broncos appreciator, is Bo Nix's willingness and ability to be mobile at the end of the year. And I know how much that opens up in an offense. And they bring a guy like Evan Ingram into the building. And, what's his role going to be? Obviously, with a lot of the identity being predicated in the run game, and they've invested in the offensive line, they've got good players there. You have to imagine the tight end is going to be a featured staple in that offense. So maybe that receiver room that, comes into question becomes kind of that Robin to the tight end running backs Batman in this offense. And Bo Nix gets to play point guard, and it'll be a lot of fun to watch.
Yeah, two things here about the Denver Broncos that I want to say. One, I want to give a hat tip to George Patton, GM, for 2 reasons. One, I think he made the most underrated move in the NFL last season. It didn't get talked about a lot about. He traded for Jonathan Franklin Myers for a 6th-round pick. Jonathan Franklin Myers was a key player. Everyone talks about, one of the best, top 3, number 1 in sacks last year, top 3 pass rushing win rate. They got John Franklin Myers for a 6th-round pick, and he was a key part of that. Like, that was how they did it. And he did not rest on his laurels for a defense that was, one of the best defenses in the NFL. He went out and had Dre Greenlaw, Talanoa Hufanga, and Jade Barron. He went 3 starters to a defense that was already loaded. I love making a strength even stronger. I love having dominant units, and there is no doubt that the Broncos have dominant units now on the defensive side of the football. And the other thing, offensively, I'm with you, JP. I don't think they did enough. If they really want to win Super Bowl, they didn't do enough offense. I don't think this offense is going to be good enough to run through the gauntlet that is the AFC. But it ain't going to be worse than last year. It will, in my opinion, still take a step forward. I think Pat Bryant's at least NFL ready in his game coming out of Illinois. I think Evan Ingram is at least an upgrade from what they were sending out a year ago. And RJ Harvey, even if he's, maybe not necessarily the most NFL ready, and maybe they have questions about his vision, and maybe J.K. Dobbins is starting over him, Javonte Williams was ass last year. He does not have the juice anymore. So for all those reasons, I'm buying the Broncos. All right, Las Vegas Raiders, last one here before we wrap. 2024, they won 4 games. They now have, with 6.5 wins as their over-under, the highest juice in the NFL, tied with, who did I say earlier, the Tennessee Titans. Tied with Tennessee Titans at -150. Raiders fans are buying. JP, you're buying too. You're going 7 wins with the 6.5 over under here.
I'm going 7 here, largely just because I think that offense is going to be really, really fun. I think with what Chip Kelly's bringing to this new element of the Chip Kelly offense to the NFL, I think with some of the stuff they did with the gap scheme at Ohio State is going to really work well. The running back like Ashton Jeanty, who is phenomenal, is going to help them in the run and passing game. Having a legitimate quarterback in Geno Smith is going to really help. And I think that they have built that offense to have layers, with Dante Thornton being sort of the vertical kind of space creator for guys like Jacoby Myers, for guys like Brock Bowers, who are going to be the focal points of the offense. But the reason I can't go any higher than 7 is this defense is predicated on winning in pass rush. You have to get to 3rd down for this defense to win. And even then, I just worry about that secondary. It's going to come along really slowly. But if you have Max Crosby, if you have Malcolm Kuntz, who I think was really good before he tore his ACL, you have a bunch of guys who can win in your pass rush room. I think that's going to get them to be a competitive, fun team.
You know what? I really I missed out on the opportunity for us to go 777s on Vegas, pull the slot machine, 777. So I'm going to change it to 7. I'll go 7 wins for the Las Vegas Raiders. And I apologize to Harry, our producer, who is making these graphics, 7s across the board. That's what it is. I am so excited to watch this offense. I played for Chip Kelly in college, so I've had my eyes on him through his journey back into the National Football League. You got 2 tight ends. You got a running back. You've got an immediate upgrade at the quarterback position. You've got a blindside protector. You've got a center who is a draft pick. Go Ducks in Jackson Powers Johnson. This group is this. Well, I mean, we've got players here. This is a unit
he's taking your position. He's taking right guard.
This is and by the way, he was asked who his favorite former Raider is, and he said Kyle Long instead of Howie Long. I heard that one. Never played for the Raiders, by the way. But this unit is built to have – you're supposed to have a good offense with the people here. So that's what the Raiders want to see. A win for the Raiders is Geno Smith is there for the foreseeable future. Brock Bowers is still a superstar. Ashton Jeanty's as advertised, and the offensive line stays healthy. That's a big win for the Raiders. And you can fill in that defensive stuff as you go over the next few years.
Yeah, I mentioned that – and I apologize here to the Raiders faithful, because I mentioned the teams that are going to play fun games. Raiders are one of the other teams that are going to play fun games. I mentioned the Bengals, the Jags, the Dolphins. This is another one where this offense every single week I think is going to show up. It's built to show up. The talent they have offensively behind this offensive line that I think is going to be a solid unit. Maybe not spectacular, but solid, good enough that Ashton Jeanty can roll. And then Geno Smith, I just think he still gets underrated in what he's bringing to the table to this Raiders team. You go from bottom 2 quarterback situation in the NFL. I'm not sure who had worse results at the quarterback position in the NFL last year, to top 10, and top 10 with a receiving core that I think pairs so well. I've talked about this before. This is the receiving core in the NFL that has the best hands in the NFL. They have the best ball skills of any receiving core in the NFL. Brock Bowers, Michael Mayer, Jacoby Myers, Jack Besh. These guys don't drop footballs. And you're getting one of the most accurate quarterbacks in the league with a team that doesn't drop footballs. That's a match made in heaven, in my opinion, and it is just going to come down to how many stops. And if there's anything about Pete Carroll, it's that his defenses do not bottom out. They are not going to be a sieve. They might not be great. They won't be a sieve. And because of that, I love the under here. Apparently, a lot of people do too. I just think this is a new age for this Raiders team. Even if the division's tough, I don't think this is the year they finally get over the hump, make the playoffs. But this is a new page for the Las Vegas Raiders, and it'll be fun. And they will be a very fun team in 2025. All right, there you have it. Our over-under win total projections for every team in the AFC. We'll be back tomorrow doing NFC, I believe, with Brock Breen, but it's got some big shoes to fill, JP. Thanks so much for filling in. You were fantastic today. Hopefully have you back on. Until next time, keep pushing.